Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin. Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, 25 years serial tech entrepreneur. My new book, Fail Hard, Win Big, comes out here in July 2025. This is my story of having built 30 ventures and having 20 of those fails, but 10 win. And it's about how to harness failures into your superpower. The key thing of every company I've built is how I've built custom software around the operations to create a unique client experience, to raise enterprise value. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We are a nearshore custom software development firm. And today we are joined by Bob Provencher out of New Jersey. Bob has been a software engineer in the trenches, grown up through an architect, was the CEO of his company for a while, and is currently CTO. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice
Bob,
to be here.
if you would, give our listeners an overview of the journey of your career.
It's really been a long journey. In the 80s, I was actually a mainframe developer and decided to get into client server. And my actual first environment was Turbo C++. So that's really dating myself.
Yes, a little bit.
The C++, C, Windows SDK stuff back in the day. And I did I made a decent career out of sort of predicting or recognizing the next thing and jumping on it. So Windows, client server, mobile, and today I'm sort of cloud, mobile, web, all those things. Microsoft stack mostly, not because I feel it's superior or anything. It's just where I started and where I, grew up in. But today I'm pretty much platform agnostic, Mac, Linux, everything. And for my day job, we are in the Azure cloud, so a lot of cloud technology.
Gotcha. Now, tell us about your company, PDHI.
PDHI is a software as a service provider of a health and wellness platform to health plans and large employer groups. Basically, we take their members through sort of healthy lifestyle changes over a 1-year program to try to help them lose weight or just have healthier person or to be healthier habits, basically. So you'll take a health risk assessment at the beginning of the program, and we'll take you through some challenges, action plans, different things you should do to be healthier.
All right. And before we started taping, Bob, you were telling me how you're kind of a fitness nut. You're in the gym 6 times a week. Was that a big part of why you became part of this company? Does this fall in your passion?
It is partly because it is interesting to me that this health and wellness is more about helping unhealthy people. So that's nice. My personal journey was really just always interested in fitness. And like a lot of people during COVID, had the opportunity to get a lot more serious about it because there was literally nothing else to do. And so that's where the 6 days a week came. But it definitely helped to have, a day job that sort of lines up with my health and my healthy outlook on things.
Gotcha. Now, how did you land your current role as CTO of PDHI?
Well, I started here as a principal mobile architect because 2011, they were looking to develop a mobile app. I happened to be a good fit because I had both the back end and the front end. Within a couple months, I was a VP of software engineering because they needed, a person familiar with the life cycle. And then I think 3 years ago now, the CTO retired and I was the obvious fit to move up as a CTO. I'd already done a lot of work in the development organization, agile, trunk-based development, all sort of the things that you would want to see in a modern development environment. So I moved up to CTO.
Gotcha. So you've run the gambit from being an engineer, from being an architect. What things did you have to unlearn or even change to migrate to the CTO role versus kind of a pure hands-on tech role?
I think the key is to maintain the hands-on, but not try to do everything yourself. Some of the best things I can do is to mentor, but not sort of control, and to delegate with some guidance, but not sort of, here's exactly how this has to be done. And yes, getting hands off really helps a lot to get the big picture. And also, I think, engineers who are just starting out or 5 years-ish, they'll surprise you. You challenge them with something that I'm not sure how this is going to go, but let's see how these guys do. And every time they really blow your mind. They do great. So getting hands off and not worrying about doing everything yourself is probably the biggest thing. And there's some great books on this. My favorite one is Turn the Ship Around, about delegation. So I've learned sort of, delegate and trust in your guys.
So Bob, I don't know a lot of guys that were programming COBOL in the 80s, but fast forward are gamers today. And pre-show, you were telling me how that's one of your passions as well, as a gamer. Is that a way you stay bonded with the engineers on your team?
We do have a Discord channel where we're talking about doing some gaming, but we don't actually have time. But back in the day when I was at some previous startups, that was literally 4:30 till about 9 p.m. playing Quake in the late 90s. I don't play that much anymore, but the reason gaming was the passion because I grew up wanting to be a software engineer in games. So 3D engines and all that fun stuff, low-level device drivers, software 3D engines, not hardware. So doing everything in software, which is pretty challenging. So sort of the John Carmack line doesn't pay very well. So I ended up just going into regular software engineering.
Okay. Tell us, Bob, about some current projects you're working on.
Right now, the biggest thing is some new features that we just rolled out at Step Tracker. So we track steps for our users right from their devices, put them into our app so we could see and they can use them towards challenges and things. And on the technical side, we're really just constantly trying to remove technical debt, legacy systems, legacy software, as well as re-architect the whole thing into a microservice architecture. It was a monolith, very large Microsoft solution, lots of projects, very slow build, that sort of thing. So we're breaking that up into much smaller, manageable pieces.
Gotcha. So tell us about your engineering team, how they're structured, the work model you guys follow.
We're a team of only about a dozen guys separated into 3 product scopes. So I prefer to have people on cross-functional teams that dedicated to specific scopes and products. That
Okay.
way, everything you need is on a single team. You're not waiting for the database guys and you don't put in a ticket to them to make that change and do this and that. It's everything is all self-contained in a cross-functional team. And we're definitely agile. So, the typical kind of sprints and that sort of thing, 2-week sprints. And we're really heavy on trying to adopt, heavy test-driven development, mob programming, extreme programming practices that allow us to move fast and change things, to sometimes break things and get things to production quickly. Now we've got a monolith, so it's not always possible and it's not always desirable, especially in some of our legacy code that's not covered very well. But everything new goes into a microservice and gets feature flagged in and is much more flexible. So the big challenge is migrating from sort of monolith to that. But it's been entertaining, actually.
All right. Now, your team's fully remote, correct?
That is correct.
And do you have team members worldwide, just in the US?
We have mostly the US, but we do have some Latin American folks, some nearshore people from, just different engineering firms that provide them. But for the most part, we prefer to have employees and local to the US employees.
Have you, as you've scaled engineering teams throughout your career, have you found that fine balance between in-house employees and contractors that make up your engineering team? What have you seen works best?
It's a tough one because you do want to try to use, less expensive resources, but it's difficult, especially in an agile environment, to do that if there's different time zones, that sort of thing, or, they want to work at a different time. In the past, I've tried, offshoring 10 and a half hour difference to India, and it's very difficult. The nearshoring model, I think, works a lot better. They're integrated as part of the team. What's the difference if someone's remote in, San Diego or Ecuador, right? It's just same difference as long as there's good communication skills and everyone's working together. That seems to work the best, at least for us, is the nearshoring.
I'm biased. I run a nearshore software development company, but like 2016, 2017 was the tipping point for me where I felt that cloud and mobile environments were complicated enough that you needed constant collaboration between your team, where that hour or 2 overlap of working with offshore teams, that's kind of when I saw it be a lot more difficult. What's your view?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you end up spending a lot of time trying to document and email and describe and collaborate through those things rather than just, off the cuff meetings or, mob programming. So the 2 hours, as you just said, it's not possible. You end up spending more time documenting what has to be done than you would have just doing it almost. So I'm not it works for a lot of companies, especially larger companies, but I'm not a huge fan of trying to do it at our scale.
I agree. It could be challenging, and same time zone resources, that real time collaboration is key. So you said you're an Azure shop net. How are you balancing tech debt from pushing out new features? What's the balance you found there to make everybody happy and make sure everything stays up and running?
That's a great question, because I really do prefer an iterative approach to tech debt rather than sort of huge rewrites or, 6 months projects, that sort of thing. So between things like feature flags and turning things into microservices, we're able to incrementally improve. And I just have an agreement with product who does not report to me that if we're going to touch something for a new feature and its legacy, we have to have the option to move it into, modern stuff. And it actually saves us time many times, because the old monolith is just so slow to build. It's a 20-minute build versus a microservice that's, 30 seconds, that sort of thing. And so getting buy-in about the cost of continuing to be in the sort of legacy system and the old technology wasn't hard. I could show it, every day. So literally we're going to touch it. Anything time we touch something, we want to move it to new. And it's worked pretty well so far. So we don't have too many strict, just technical things that we're doing. It's okay, we're touching such and such a feature. Let's bring it up to, .NET 9 or whatever.
Now, have you been able to integrate any of the AI coding tools into your engineering processes, like Windsurf or Cursor or GitHub, Copilot? What's been your experience there?
We're mostly using Copilot. I personally have played a little bit with Claude, and I actually am very impressed. I think it's a really useful tool. I don't know about, creating applications completely. Anytime I've asked it to do anything super complicated, you get something that looks like it could be right, but ends up not being so correct. But for helping, especially for just getting an answer to a question, I don't even bother with, the search engines any longer. I just go straight to Copilot. What is a blah, blah, blah? Spits back an answer to me. But also, we have some engineers who've really found it useful for things like, here's this class, write me a set of unit tests for this. And yeah, you got to massage it a little bit, but it comes back very quickly. So we found a lot of small things that save us a ton of time.
Gotcha. So, a CTO halfway through 2020, what's the biggest challenge you're facing now?
It really is that sort of getting out of the technical debt and moving towards, a microservice architecture and, keeping my guys up to speed and happy and, taking advantage of, the platform that we're on. The cloud services are just amazing. We've moved everything from VMs to platform as a service, not even containers, just straight up web apps, but that's a challenge. But the payoff is so huge in less infrastructure, less management, less patching, managing all that stuff that it's well worth it. But I'd say that's probably one of the two biggest challenges, the tech debt itself and moving to a modern environment.
So, Bob, if we were to put 10 tech leaders in a room and ask them what AI is, we'd probably get 10 different answers. As a CTO, how do you manage non-technical executives, board members, investors, PE firms when they're pushing you on the use of AI within the company?
Right. There's not really much they have to push as far as the usage of it for our toolkit. In our product, we're looking at, where can we use AI? Because you can imagine we take a health risk assessment, we see what you do during a year, and you end up with this outcome. You ought to be able to reinforcement learn through that process and be able to give those things, from basic, just training. Here's how many thousands of people did this, and this is their outcome. But to answer your question, when they, they're not really pushing for that. When I do get those are the sort of answers I give. But we're still sort of analyzing our data and understanding where we can even use it. But for day to day, it's very simple. I'm all for it. We've used Copilot, as we said. We use, some AI summarization tools for meetings. We use all sorts of different little utilities and gadgets that just make things so easy. Just an example, a silly example, but I had an 8-month chat with a vendor that I need to summarize the list of problems from the chat. And I spent 2 days looking through it, trying to pull out, I just should dump this in the Copilot, and it spit out a summary, in literally 30 seconds. So they don't have to sell me, is my point. I'm already sort of there. And the answer is we're using it everywhere we can. If you give me a new idea, please let me know. I'll happy to look at it.
So do you get cost pressures from the business that why do you need 12 or 15 people on your engineering team? How come you can't do it with less? I read my friend's company, they've cut their engineering team by 60%. Why can't you do that? What's your response?
My response is it's there to help right now, and it's very good at helping, but it's not, at least what I've seen, it's not going to replace an engineer anytime soon. But I certainly never say never, right? Never is a long time, so I can imagine it's going to only get better and better. But right now, it can augment our staff. Perhaps it doesn't require me to ask for as much new staff, that sort of thing, but it's not going to let me, just replace whole people with it.
Gotcha. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It's a great tool for productivity, but at least anytime soon, it's not going to be replacing software engineers, but it could certainly help them be more productive.
Right. Absolutely.
So, Bob, what's one brutal lesson through your ventures that you've learned that you wish you would have learned earlier as a CTO that you know now?
I think we were talking about it just before. If you've got to, improve something incrementally it's the best way to go. I've lived through 2 or 3. We got to rewrite this thing because it's so bad and it just never works. You end up stopping and being stagnant for 3 years while you're trying to rewrite this thing, and the old thing is moving along and it's just impossible. And you can't capture the requirements. There's a million reasons not to do it. Incrementally move the thing into the new thing and get them to work together somehow as seamlessly as possible so that you can slowly migrate and not stop for, how can you stop your business for 3 years while you're rewriting your software? Yet somehow that ends up being an idea that sounds really compelling, but it's not. So
it's hard for a CTO to keep their job with no product up and running.
Pretty much.
And it's certainly been a volatile space. So, Bob, if you have a family or friend, a young, smart software engineer who says they want to be a CTO as their career progresses, what would you tell them?
I would tell them,
run, don't do it.
No, it's actually kind of fun because I still am, 20% hands-on, and it's also, the big picture. I would definitely say understand software architecture, so solid principles, gang of 4 patterns, all the important stuff that engineers have, as well as sort of the big picture, enterprise architecture, microservice architecture, because they're not really that hard once you sort of just grasp what it is. And I've got, interns that have been with me in a year to get it. So, it's not a lot of like really super, super complicated stuff that we do. It just sounds very, intimidating, and, enjoy it. Software engineering, coding and that stuff is my hobby. And so if someone enjoys coding to the point where they're doing it in their spare time, they're probably perfect for the kind of job. Because if you love doing it that much, you're not going to be able to put down a problem until it's solved.
So I like, Bob, how you said you're still hands-on. I think that the percentage you use was 20%. I'm a big believer that a CTO, whether it's as part of their day job or even tinkering after hours or weekends, needs to keep some hands on keyboard to understand current challenges, to understand how to efficiently use AI tools, and to kind of stay on top of the trends to truly connect with their team. You live and breathe that. Is that by choice? Is that just how it worked out? What's your take there?
If it was choice, it would probably be more 100% because that's I truly enjoy. But I think you're absolutely right. You can't be an engineering leader. I mean, you don't have to know the complete details of every little thing. Obviously, I've got my experts, my principal software engineers that know the details, but I do have to have enough of the big picture and understanding and being able to be able to speak intelligently and make intelligent decisions. And I jump in and do all the same training I make my guys take, and I learn how to use the same things and all that. And it really does help sort of be a better leader, right? You've got the big picture and the leadership skills and leadership training, as well as the detailed knowledge. You can probably do a lot better than just sort of having management skills without no understanding of what's being done.
I would definitely agree with you. What would you say is the hardest part of your job as CTO?
It really is sort of balancing and sort of guiding, product into, first of all, the process that we're using now is very agile and very product focused, but getting them to undertake the idea of giving us and specifying requirements as business requirements, features, problems. What do you want us to solve without solutioning for the end?
Well, Bob, Appreciate you getting uncensored with us today. Thanks for joining the show. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. Stay bold and keep building, everybody. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.